Welcome. Good morning. Monday morning, 23rd. We are working on Senate files today. Welcome, committee members. We have one member that is out sick this morning with flu-like conditions. Thank you, Mark, for bringing that. Mark is back with us. We are grateful for him to be, he is recovered from the dreaded flu and he's back in his seat, back in the saddle. Appreciate him that he's back here. We missed him. So Mark, would you call the roll, please?
I'd be happy to. Representative Campbell.
Here.
Representative Knapp.
Here.
Representative Larson.
Here.
Representative Lawley.
Here.
Representative Riggins.
Hi, here.
Yeah. Representative
You're
Schmidt.
all ready, aren't you? Sorry?
Schmidt. Representative Schmidt.
Excused.
Thank you. Representative Tarver.
Here.
Representative Weber.
Excused.
Chairman Heiner.
Here.
Chairman Heiner, you have a quorum.
Okay, thank you very much. Members, just a reminder that interim topics need to be turned in this Friday. Now, there's one, the website says by noon and the email says by 4 p.m. So I would suggest get them in by noon just to be safe. But this Friday is the date for interim topics. And then we are meeting, I think, March 5th. Is that right, Mark, for our interim topics? Do you remember what date that is? To discuss that jointly with the Senate?
I believe so.
So it will be at noon on March 5th, I believe. You should all have an invite to that. And that will be a joint session with the Senate to discuss our interim topics. So today we have one bill, Senate Joint Resolution 1, State Management Federal Mineral Leases. Senator Ide, thank you for being here again. I apologize we didn't get to this on Friday, but we're all ears today. We're all fresh, and this is probably better for you because we can maybe not fall asleep. All right, well, please introduce yourself, Senator, and then proceed.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman Heiner and members of the committee. Bob Ide, I think I know all of you. Senate District 29 out of Casper. And the bill in front of you today is Senate Joint Resolution 1. This actually came out of the Select Federal Natural Resource Management Committee and over the interim. It's a good little bill here, and it just a little background, the chairman of the Appropriations Committee had sent a letter to our congressional delegation back in Washington to just ask about changing our royalty rate on our federal mineral leases and our federal mineral royalties. And this is just effectively a follow-up to that, which goes a little bit deeper. Theirs was just a letter to our representatives in Congress. This one goes actually to the president, if we get this resolution through, and to the Speaker of the House and the President of the Senate back in Washington, as well as our congressional delegation. So we just went one step further to get it spread out there and keep peppering that we'd like to see a little better share on our royalty share. So with that, that's sort of the backdrop of how this got started. It's a real simple bill. I'll just read the catch title here, basically. The joint resolution requesting Congress to introduce a bill and enact law to amend the Federal Mineral Leasing Act to authorize the state of Wyoming to administer and manage mineral leasing on federal lands located in Wyoming. It started off maybe just oil and gas and coal for all of the reasons of the last few administrations of, putting moratoriums on us, on, the previous administration, the day after he was elected, pretty much shut down all of our oil and gas leasing in the state. And then it went on to coal with a Buffalo RMP. So this is just a way to try to take control of our future effectively. So we're not beholden to what's going on in Washington, and maybe control our destiny a little bit better here. If things like that happen in the future, we kind of have the wind at our back a little bit right now with this administration, but it's you never know what's going to happen in the future. And if we could get control of that, I think it would be really good for our state if we could get that authority to do that and change the Mineral Leasing Act. So with that, I'll just hit a few of the highlights in here. It's pretty short. You guys probably read it all. The federal administration of mineral leasing on federal lands in Wyoming in the last 10 years has been inconsistent, unpredictable, and subject to political delays that negatively impact Wyoming's economy, energy industry, and citizens. The federal administration of mineral leasing has been subject to prolonged leasing moratoriums, regulatory uncertainty, and delayed environmental reviews under NEPA that have resulted in decrease in mineral activity on federal lands. I don't need to go through the whole thing. I don't think you guys can look at it there. I don't want to bore you with all of that, but the last sort of high point in there is Wyoming could administer and manage mineral leasing on federal lands located within the state more efficiently and at a lower cost than the federal government. That's the essence of the bill. I need to point out here on page 5, when this bill went through our minerals committee on the Senate side, they did an amendment, and that was voted on and it passed. There's some things in there that I think I'm not particularly fond of. I guess it sort of makes it a little more, there's things in there that are being said that I don't think we need to say. In particular, if you look on page 5, line 16, Romanet 2 there says preserve mineral ownership of the lands and the underlying mineral estate. I don't think we really need to commit ourselves to that. I mean, this is just a resolution, and we really don't want to forfeit that ability in our act of admission under the equal footing doctrine and the property clause of the U.S. Constitution. I think a lot of the people that I talk to say that they're mandated to dispose in the U.S. Constitution, and that's what the bill we ran last year was, to transfer those lands to the state of Wyoming. And so the original language in section 1 was just real short, and all it said was that the Wyoming Legislature requests that Congress introduce and enact legislation to amend the Mineral Leasing Act to authorize the state of Wyoming to administer and manage mineral leasing on federal lands located in Wyoming. That's all the original bill said. And I think simple is better. I'll leave it up to your committee here. I want you to look at that on section 1. There's a word on page 9. If you guys want to look at possible, I'm sorry, on line 9, page 5, yeah, where it says on specified federal lands, if anything, I would take out specified. I mean, I think a blanket federal mineral leasing on federal lands in Wyoming would be the simple, easy way to present this thing, instead of sort of mucking it up a little bit with, let's pick pieces here and there and everywhere. It'd be nice just to change the Mineral Leasing Act that we have that authority, within our borders, period. So with that, committee, that's essentially the bill. It takes the royalty, or the one thing that was added right there in the last paragraph or the Romanet 5 on page 6. This is where right now on federal mineral royalties, we get charged 2%. It's a 50-50 split, but we end up with 48%. So that language was put in by the Minerals Committee also. And I think there was a little debate on our side, we've got kind of a mirror, not a mirror bill, but a sister bill to this that you guys saw that came out of the House on changing the royalty share from 87.5% to 12, that we get 87.5 and the feds get 12.5. So these kind of play with each other, and there was talk of trying to marry these two, but we decided that it's best to leave them alone. The federal government may like us taking over the leasing, but they may not want to lower their share of the minerals, so their mineral royalties. So that's why we kept these separate. But we've got this same language that's in here. We're amending that to put that in the bill that came over from you guys as well, too. So that's really it. This is just, we want authority to control our own destiny with the mineral leasing on federal lands. Yeah. So I'll ask for any questions.
All right. Thank you, Senator
Yeah.
Hyde, and appreciate all the work that the Federal Natural Resources Committee did this summer. Appreciate that.
Mhm.
Representative Lawley, question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Senator Ide, for bringing this. This is a really important topic, and I appreciate you answered some of my questions about the bill in the House versus this bill. And I'll talk about that first, and then some other questions I just have about a few things. So if you amend into the bill coming out of the House, this language, so we're going to have two bills that, as that we just work that out in conference, is that the idea? Because we're going to have, I'm trying to figure out why we are doing it that way based on what you explained earlier, which made sense about two different bills. What's the thinking there? If you could help me with that.
Senator?
Yeah, Chairman, Representative Lawley. I really don't see any purpose of marrying the two bills together. They're both just resolutions. And as I stated earlier, I think we have a lot better chance probably on this particular bill that the feds may just want to wash their hands of that administrative part of what they do. It's hard to say, but it's asked nicely is effectively what this resolution is. And, if we don't get it, we won't know if we don't try, sort of a thing. I don't know if that answers your questions, but I think it's best to keep these two separate from each other.
Okay.
Follow up?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That does make sense, and I appreciate that. I want to make sure I'm understanding, and this maybe some of the changes you referred to, but on page 5, what I'm seeing here is the idea that we are asking or requesting administrative primacy, which I understand that that's really important. Whenever Wyoming can get primacy, I'm all for it.
Absolutely.
And is then they're going to be resulting 2% if they were to accept this resolution and what we're asking, 2% return, they would come to Wyoming for the charges that the federal government or they has on those, their administration of these leases and the royalties. Am I reading that right? So is there a component of a kind of a rebate, if you will, or something if they agree to give us administrative primacy?
Senator?
Yeah, Chairman, Representative. That brings up a good point. This bill didn't originally have that 2% in it, and that was the Minerals Committee on the Senate side is the one that amended it to put that in there. And I'm not entirely sure if the thought process was, if we're going to do the leasing, we want we're going to be doing the administration on it. So effectively that would affect the other bill, like you're saying right there. And so we're actually adding that language into the bill that came out of the House on the 87.5. So I think maybe just keeping them both consistent. And you guys can look at it as well too and see if you see anything that I'm missing here, because we're trying to work these two, ones out of the House, ones out of the Senate, and get them sort of married and separate at the same time.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
really actually like this. It's an
Yeah.
elegant way to get a few more percentages over to our side and have the kind of primacy that creates efficiencies. And we can make sure we are actually, the royalties are being accounted for in the right way. So I do like it, but I wanted to make sure I understood it's kind of an elegant way to do that. Bring a little bit more back to Wyoming by
Yeah.
taking over the primacy. So
Yeah.
thank you so much. That's all.
All right. Any other questions for Senator Wright? Representative Knapp, Chairman Knapp.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator, just in follow-up to Representative Lawley's questions. On page 5, then, as I understood it, you would be amicable to a strike on line 9 to get rid of specified and possibly strike to Romanet II. Is that the only changes that you would see?
Senator?
Chairman, Representative Knapp, I'm glad you asked that question. I would personally, I would take everything out underneath, like you said, change that in line 9, eliminate specified, and then everything else under there, that was all added. And I personally don't think it's even necessary. One of the things, if you look at Romanet 3, it says require state administration to be consistent with applicable federal law. I'm always, every bill that I look at over there, sometimes I'm a no vote just because it is that. A lot of times those are applicable to federal laws that are unconstitutional. I think a lot of the legislation back there, they have no enumerated power, even for like NEPA. I mean, where do they get their enumerated power for NEPA back in Washington? I mean, the Commerce Clause, a lot of times they'll mention the Commerce Clause, and it's like, I think that's stretching the flavor of that enumerated power in Washington. Not saying that they all are, but I don't think it's necessary to say that in here in this particular simple resolution. Yeah. So Representative Knapp, that's an even Romanet 1. Apply only to federal lands mutually designated by the state and the Secretary of Interior under a cooperative agreement. And I kind of understand that, but I think the simpler, the better. We're just purely asking for primacy for leasing within our borders, period. Yeah. And then if we get there, they can say, okay, we like what you're talking about here, but we want to just do this part right here. And would you guys agree to that? I think we ask for primacy on everything other than Yellowstone National Park. That's the only thing that they reserved at statehood, essentially. Yeah.
Senator, you're not advocating to remove Romanet 5, are you?
Let's see. No, Romanet 5 would be,
Okay.
That's exactly. I think it's good to leave that in there personally. There's opinions on that, like Representative Lawley brought up, to if that's confusing, since that's really taken out of our royalty share on the other resolution. Yeah.
Okay. Follow up, Representative Knapp?
Yes, just one. So on page 6, 4 would be included in that for removal. But leave 5.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Would you say that?
Oh, I'm just following through. So 1, 2, and 3 would not be necessary, but on page 6, we would leave 5. And then what about 4?
I think 4 is pretty benign, actually. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Representative Riggins and then back to Lawley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Ide, I can tend to agree with you of making that simpler, because regardless of what we do here, the other states who are in this very same situation are going to be signing on or signing off on something like this. And ultimately, your delegations, your congressional delegations in the Congress are going to be ones negotiating this. And I probably would remove all those down at the bottom because to me, that's going to be a necessity. They're going to be negotiating that, and it's going to be somewhat out of our hands. We just hope for the best. So I would remove all of that. and leave it to them to deal with it because it's going to be a 10-state deal. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator, any comment?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Senator Reagan or Representative Riggins. I agree with that, actually, with what you just said. And you guys that are more veteran than I am here, you know, this got amended in the Senate and it got voted on to leave all this in here. And if you guys change it and then it comes back for concurrence, conference committee, you can maybe help me out with this. Some of you guys that have been here longer, they're going to say, well, they took out everything that we voted to put in. And now what do we do? And I hate to lose this, but there's some of this in here that I would rather not have the bill. If you're going to leave the federal, you're going to forfeit your ability in the future, that we're essentially saying you own the minerals forever. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Representative Lawley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to kind of drill down a little bit on this because some of this language is typical in requests for primacy. They're kind of requirements that we have to say to get primacy. And I think that might have been where Senate Minerals was coming from. Could you kind of share with us the discussion in Senate Minerals? Because that's what worries me about taking it wholesale out, is that it is like primacy. To get the primacy, we have to promise certain things or acknowledge certain things. And I'm not saying this is exactly the right language, but I think it's what it's trying to do, because when we've received primacy in other areas, the nuclear area regulating class 6 wells primacy, all of this kind of language comes to play in those getting that primacy. In other words, that they don't give primacy. If you want the primacy, you're not going to get it without making certain statements or concessions. But again, I'm not saying we couldn't change, modify some of these, but I think we need to think about that. If we're undercutting the resolution by not acknowledging some of the things that would be required to get federal primacy, whether we really like them or not. But so what can you share with us a little bit about the conversation in the Minerals Committee on the Senate side?
Senator Ide.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Representative. I wasn't at the committee meeting when they made these changes here. So
That's okay.
yeah, there's a little
Phone a
background.
friend. That's great. Phone a friend.
So that discussion, I wasn't privy to the front lines on that, so to speak. And there wasn't a whole lot of discussion on the floor. I voiced my opposition to that and tried to amend them out, and that didn't work. So, and I don't want to, I just want to give you guys my feelings on this. It doesn't, that one Romanet 2 is not good. I mean, we don't need to say that personally. We don't need to say that we're forevermore saying that we're not, by our act of admission, we have the right to come in on equal footing. That means we own the surface and the minerals within our borders if we want to fight for that in the future. So I think that that's the biggest burr under the saddle on this particular amendment here. Yeah.
Right. Co-Chair Wharf, you're itching to say something.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Co-Chairman Representative Lawley. I presented this bill to the Senate Minerals. Senator Ide had a conflict, so he asked me to pinch hit for him, and I might have got beamed with a couple of the strikes they threw at me, but I can tell you that I believe that was put in there for the purposes like you said. And some of it I'm not really concerned about. There are things that Senator Ide mentioned that I am concerned about, but I looked at it when they asked me about the amendments they were putting in it. We're asking our congressional delegation to do something, and I guess I kind of trust them. They felt like we needed to put more of that in there. I myself don't want to send the wrong message. I don't want to weaken our position in Washington, D.C., and I share that of Senator Ide. I mean, I believe that we should be demanding to be treated like other states have been treated. And I do. I think the Western states are treated like stepchildren. We're like almost like we're still a territory, is how it feels. The federal government's kind of given us statehood, but yet they've kept a large portion, a lot of the Western states. And I think it was, as I said, when I presented this to the Senate Mineral Committee, I said, in our infancy, yeah, we hadn't learned to crawl or walk yet. I think Wyoming has demonstrated that we can crawl, we can walk, and we're ready to run. And that's what this is getting at. And I don't know, I apologize, I was a little late. The one caveat that I think we can't lose sight of is one of the reasons that this surfaced was talk of the government shutting down. And I don't know if you mentioned that, but to me, that was really the fear. I mean, we saw what happened when we had an administration that was adverse to our legacy industries. But the concern is that if the government continues to shut down because it is so dysfunctional, I think it's a good argument to put our congressional delegation, to give that to them so that they can put that argument forward. Because I do think the way Congress has been acting, I think the argument sells itself. And I think they can make that argument and get support because it is something that seems to keep happening right now as they want to keep shutting it down. And I don't mind that, frankly. I think there's less laws that come into play the more they stay home. But with that, I hope that answers your question, Representative Lawley.
Follow up.
Thank you. That did provide some good background and, what I kind of suspected. And I understand the Romanet 2 concerning the concerns with that. And, I had made a note as I was reading through it, is this needed for primacy ? One number, in my view, is Romanet number 1 is needed for primacy, and Romanet number 3, which is why I'm hesitant to say, let's just take it all out. Because this is kind of primacy language. Like, this is the agreement. You make a prime agreement. I think the thinking of the Senate was this was important primacy language in number 2, but certainly the others to me really is primacy language. And we can't ask for primacy, but not make some statements consistent with how we understand primacy works. So that's just was my thought, but that helps me because I wondered why these amendments, and I started looking and going, I think it's really around this idea of we're basically have a resolution asking Congress to give us primacy, but we're maybe not making the affirmations needed to get it. So I just leave that with you, and if any response you'd like to give. I see the heartburn on number 2, though. I do.
Thank you, Mr.
Coach
Chairman.
Rourke.
Yeah, I wrestled with that because I agree, but I also look at it, this is a policy decision that we're sending to our congressional delegation. And I guess that's something we got to decide. I myself do not want to surrender any of the powers or authorities that are vested in us upon statehood. And so I just assume that our congressional delegation is going to know what they need to do in order to get it through. I wasn't worried whether it was included or excluded. It is probably better if we don't have it in there because then we are given a more, I think, precise direction to our congressional delegation. And really this just comes from the response that they got from the letter that Senator Ide mentioned. They told us a staffer basically said, we'll look at it. And we had discussed this and we thought maybe if the legislature sent it, it wouldn't just simply be a look at, it'll actually be we'll act upon. And that's what we're trying to do is be polite, but be insistent that our congressional delegation send forth that message that we do want primacy. We want to be treated like all the other states that came into the union. So I kind of left it open. It depends on how much latitude you want to give our congressional delegation. I think the language that's in there now does kind of tie their hands a little bit more. If it's stripped out, I think we're giving them the latitude to do what they need to do. And in answer to the one question about the two bills, that was kind of what we talked about was, you know, not to send two confusing messages, but to send two messages and give them the latitude to craft the legislation the way it needed to be in order for it to be effective in Congress.
So, Co-Chairman, Ide and Worf, what I'm hearing is we want to have this laser focus on administrative primacy for mineral leasing, but we don't want to cloud it with some other topics such as ownership of property or things that we'll leave for another day. We want to just focus on primacy of minerals and not cloud it with other things that could be more controversial. Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, I think that you spot on. To me, simple is better always. And this clouds it a little bit. And, you know, on that Romanet 2, focusing back on it, preserve federal ownership of lands and the underlying mineral estate. I mean, there's no time frame. There's no, you know, it's just pretty vague. And it's almost like we're forfeiting something that we may be entitled to with a lawsuit at the Supreme Court, you know,
Yeah. And that
20 years from now.
that's a discussion to have another day.
Yes, I agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions? Representative Riggins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Senator Ide. As I looked through this and you talked about striking specified, then if you did change anything below, I do think we have to have specified lands in this regard. I tell my argument on all of this whole topic about federal lands and state lands and ownership is I think it's key. Well, I think it's essential. You have to restrict the Department of Interior. There's no Department of Interior the other side of the Missouri River, where most of your opposition will come from,
Yeah.
especially if it includes Department of Agriculture land. So that's the specification I think we have to have in this resolution.
And I might add Yellowstone Park.
Yeah.
We don't want to
Yep.
open that up. So
Right.
Senator or Representative Worf, please.
Mr. Chairman, you're absolutely right. That was one of the things that was brought up. The minerals chairman on the Senate side was Senator Anderson. And he did say, so that means we can, he said, I'd be happy to do that in Yellowstone. Now, I can guarantee you that our select committee, when we discussed this, we had no intentions in ever doing that. And that's one reason why I didn't care is I didn't want anybody to get the message that we're talking about going in and developing the mineral rights within Yellowstone National Park. That was never our intent, but that is why that was allowed. I looked at it if it helped, but I share my co-chairman's concerns. Who's specifying it? And, you know, to me, I just thought logic and reason, but I probably shouldn't apply that to Congress because I'm not so sure that it exists.
All right. Thank you. Any other?
Yeah,
Senator Ide?
Mr. Chairman, yeah, just to play off that real short. Yeah, and I think it's abundantly clear, you know, we never had primacy on Yellowstone National Park. It was a park before statehood. So we've never made any claim to that. It's
But
just,
Teton National Park was after statehood.
It was.
what's that? Pardon me?
Teton National Park was after statehood.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. But Yellowstone National Park was really the only thing that was reserved in our act of admission. Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right. Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much, Co-Chairman. Appreciate all the work that you did during the interim on this and in your committee on federal natural resources.
Thank you,
We'll
committee.
open it up to testimony now.
Thanks.
Anyone in the room care to testify on Senate Joint Resolution 1? Good Monday morning, gentlemen. Thank you for being here.
Go ahead,
Mr. Daytye, looks like a concerned look on your face.
Never concerned, Mr. Chairman, when I'm in front of the best committee in the legislature, House Minerals, and it's a privilege to be here. Travis Detail with the Mining Association will offer our support of the bill. As you know, and has been sort of discussed a little bit, we have regulatory primacy over our coal program and our uranium recovery program. What we have found is that regulatory primacy works better for Wyoming. And so any efforts that we can do to gain primacy in other areas is good. I would like to point out though, and not wedded to this at all, but with regards to adjusting of the payment schedule for the royalty rate right now, it's 50-50. But because of that administrative fee, we actually get 48%. The feds get 52%. I'm kind of supportive of the language that was put in on that. You know, when you talk about this going back to Washington, D.C., that might actually have a chance of happening. And just kind of where we are right now, recall the federal rate on coal used to be a floor of 12.5%. The big beautiful bill brought that down to a ceiling of 7%. So we've roughly, the state of Wyoming with their share, whatever they get, they've lost about 5.5%. And I think some of the stuff that I've read that's cost the state roughly $30 million. Well, by a shift of that to trying to get that rate changed just by moving that administrative rate over, you're basically gaining 4%. So you're clawing back some of that money that you would have lost under the big beautiful bill. It also sets the stage for this. Do you even need the administrative fee? The administrative fee was put in back when, who knows when, back when they're doing things on pencil and paper with a calculator, with an abacus, and then having to cut the check. Right now, it's just basically an electronic fund transfer. Do you need millions of dollars to administer that? So it sets the debate. And again, what the committee decides to do, if you choose to keep it focused on the privacy aspect and take that out, we're fine with that. But I'm just thinking of, you know, what would have the greatest chance of success in Washington, D.C. with our delegation. But we stand in support of the bill, whichever way you decide to move. And Mr. Chairman, I'd stand for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Detail. Any questions? Appreciate your testimony.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Mr. Malone.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for this opportunity. Brett Moline, Wyoming Farm Bureau Federation, sitting in support of this resolution. We've always, for years, we've advocated that bringing back the management to the state for all of our resources is much better than having a federal government do it. Closer to home, better decisions, given the uniqueness of Wyoming compared to other states. Rather have somebody in the state that understands the state to be able to manage these resources. So sitting in support, I would take any questions you or the committee may have for me.
Thank you, Mr. Moline. Questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Obermuller.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, committee, Pete Obermuller, Petroleum Association of Wyoming. Boy, oh boy, Mr. Chairman, this really scratches the itch of federal lands policy for me. I could talk about this for a long time. I actually do know the answer of when the administrative fee went into place because I was working for then Representative Lummis when it happened. And Representative Lummis at the time introduced a bill, so there's precedent already from our delegation to do precisely what you're asking. We had introduced a bill at the time that would allow essentially primacy, allow the state to operate the leasing program and then take the administrative fee on our side and flip the script instead so that we get 51 and the feds get 49. We can do it for a lot cheaper than the feds do it. It's an absurd concept anyway that the feds take an administrative fee from the states for operating the royalty program. So as Mr. Detail said, I think that is the most likely successful outcome is clawing back that administrative fee. And it's kind of silly to talk about administrative fee, but it's actually a lot of money to the state of Wyoming. Yeah. It can be at times upwards of $40 million a year that they take from us in an administrative fee. It's ridiculous. So that part absolutely love. The one, I mean, I like the bill. Don't get me wrong. But that part I think does have has some legs. The delegation has tried it before, and I think there might be possibility there. I just want to go back to primacy for 1 second. I think we're all clear on this, but I just want to make sure when Mr. Detail mentions the primacy programs in his world, and then there's DEQ primacy for all sorts of things. Primacy is us running a federal program. It's not us being able to dictate what that federal program is. So if we have primacy over mineral leasing and the royalty program, et cetera, that doesn't mean we can't just do whatever we want. We have to meet the requirements of the federal government. And the requirements of the federal government is we can't drill in wilderness areas, wilderness study areas, Teton National Park, Yellowstone, monuments, et cetera, all those things. And I think that's really important. The reason why I think is important is part of the reason why we have a lot of trouble getting this done. And you saw it during the reconciliation debate in Congress when the congressman from Nevada offered a little amendment to transfer to state ownership in Nevada a few 100,000 acres. And you would have thought the world was spinning off its axis. It is a third rail. And so I prefer focusing on the art of the possible, on what we can get in Wyoming, not on things that are unlikely today or in the foreseeable future. So I just want to make sure we remember that. Last thing on Teton County, or not Teton County, Teton National Park, it did come in after statehood. And I just as a brief fun fact, our Wyoming delegation at the time, in order to agree to allow for Teton to become a national park, got a concession that Wyoming would be exempt from the Antiquities Act. That means that no president can declare a national monument in Wyoming. What an ingenious thing for them to do. Boy, has that saved our bacon. So to Senator I's point and Representative War's point about trusting our delegation to do the right thing, I think I'm right on board with that.
Thank you, Mr. Obermueller. I've always wondered why only Alaska and Wyoming have that Antiquities Act exemption. That's amazing. That has saved our bacon a lot of times when other administrations have declared national monuments. So thank you very much for that tidbit.
You're welcome.
Questions for Mr. Obermueller? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other testimony in the room? Libby, do we have any online?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have Aaron Bannon.
All right, would you introduce them into the room? Please escort them in.
Greetings, everyone. My name
Mr.
is
Bannon,
Aaron
please
Bannon.
proceed.
Thank you very much. My name is Aaron Bannon. I'm with the Wyoming Wilderness Association. Very much appreciate your time and attention to this resolution. Appreciate your time in Cheyenne. I wish I could be there in person. I was present for the Senate committee hearing on this bill, but parental duties keep me away this time around. So I will testify in this manner. I would point out, and the Wyoming Wilderness Association will point out that the BLM does a very good job of administering federal mineral leases for oil and gas in particular through the Federal Lands Policy and Management Act, through the Mineral Leasing Act, and in particular since President Trump introduced his executive order, immediate measures to increase American mineral production, that the quarterly lease sales, the BLM, through BLM procedures work very well. And in fact, under that executive order, an additional 5th mineral leasing auction was made available for any leases that aren't bid upon in the previous 4 quarters. And the last time around, we saw that happen in December. Only 20% of the leases that had been promoted were bid upon. So the system works well for energy companies interested in drilling on available federal lands. And of course, beyond that, the administrative burden that the state would be taking on to administer all of this, we would still have to adhere to all federal laws, including the National Environmental Policy Act, including resource management plans developed by the BLM, including clean air and clean water. The juice is not worth the squeeze. In my personal opinion, we get the leases we want, the revenues that we would want generated back to the state through the provision to rescue that 2% is already well well stated in SJ, I believe it's 1, right? Like the other Senate joint resolution addressing mineral leasing royalties. And in that case, there's no strings attached. In that case, we can get those royalties back without having to stand up an entire new program to do these quarterly lease sales. So I'll just keep it at that brief, and happy to stand for any questions that you might have. And thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you, Mr. Bannon. Appreciate your testimony. Any questions from the committee? Representative Riggins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I couldn't quite make out his name, but
Bannon.
appreciate your testimony here. I do have one simple question. That for a number of years and through a number of administrations, we've heard threats that we're going to end oil and gas drilling on federal lands. Do you think we should take those seriously?
Mr. Bannon?
In my opinion, it would require an act of Congress. So an executive order that tries to limit quarterly lease sales is a direct violation of the Mineral Leasing Act, which requires at least quarterly lease sales. So from the executive branch, at least, that wouldn't hold up. That wouldn't stand the test of time. Congress would have some power, of course, to change that act. But at this point, still, that would require a 60-vote majority, I would hope. So I think we have some insulation, and I think even though we've seen some hiccups in previous administrations, by and large, the mineral leasing program has proceeded very smoothly, and energy companies have been able to develop what they want to develop out of what's available in the state.
Thank you, Mr. Bannon.
Yeah, thank you.
Representative Larson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Mr. Bannon, thanks for testifying. My question is, how can we have good faith with the Bureau of Land Management, given that they tried shutting down lands in Sweetwater County in the last administration and shutting down most of our leasing ability? Why, in your opinion, why should we have faith in them?
Mr. Bannon?
Well, there's sort of, there's two different BLMs. There's certainly like the BLM that is involved in planning, and I can understand your beef with them, and especially in some of the areas that are no longer available. And I think that there is space for Sweetwater County to make a greater voice in this upcoming plan. That said, there's still a lot of land that is available for mineral development that's outside of migration corridors that are very important to the governor, that are outside of some of these wilderness study areas that are inside the Red Desert. So, yeah, it's important for us to participate in these resource management planning processes, and it's important for the BLM to take all sides into account. And regardless of how this Senate joint resolution goes, those resource management plans are going to proceed as they proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Bannon. Any follow-up questions? Thank you for your testimony.
I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Any other public testimony before we close testimony? Anyone online? Okay. We will thereby close public testimony. Committee, what's your pleasure?
Move the bill.
Moved by Representative Lawley, seconded by Representative Knapp. Discussion on the bill. Before we go through it, I don't think with any reason to go through it page by page. Any discussion or proposed amendments?
Mr.
Representative
Chairman, I would have an amendment on page 5 to strike specified on line 9 and to strike Romanettes 1, 2, and 3.
Okay, do we have a second? Seconded by Representative Campbell. Any discussion? Representative Lawley.
I'm going to be against this amendment because I think we've seen why the word specified is needed or helpful to create a lack, to eliminate a lack of confusion about which federal lands. And like we all know in the room what we're talking about, but this is a resolution and that other people may not know that. But also, I feel like some of these Romanettes are helpful to show that we understand what primacy is. And again, I would exempt Romanet 2 from that comment. I think that is one that I could support taking out. But for me, I just think all of those, we are asking for something very specific that has sort of around it certain things you're agreeing to. And I think some of those are important to have in there. So I just wanted to make that comment.
All right, thank you. Representative Riggins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just wondering, I kind of forgot about national grasslands, and I believe they still fall under the Interior Department. Am I correct? Rather than Agriculture Department? Because I know it's managed that way out of Douglas Field Office. It's forest and grasslands, and that's, so anybody has any clarity on that?
I don't. Okay, any other discussion on the proposed amendment? Seeing none and hearing the question being called. All those in favor of Chairman Knapp's proposed amendment to strike specified on line 9, as well as Romanet 1, 2, and 3 on page 5. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay
No.
or no.
Yeah, I got confused for what am I?
Okay, that amendment failed. Any other proposed amendments? Any other proposed amendments? Co-chairman or vice chairman Tarver.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to try the same thing except leave specified in. And my only, so deleting Romanet 1, 2, 3, and perhaps 4.
Perhaps yes or no?
Yeah, and 4 also. So it just Romanets 1, 2, 3, and 4 and leaving specified in. But we didn't take it out, so I
Okay,
guess we need to talk about that.
do we have a second? Seconded by Representative Riggins. Discussion. See no, okay, Representative Rowland.
Again, I'll just say, I'm a no on this for the same reasons concerning some of the Romanets that I think are important as we seek primacy.
Okay. Representative Tarver.
The reason for this is it would give our congressional delegation more latitude to move. And if they would like to put this back in when they propose, whatever bill they're going to propose, I think it gives them more options. If we put this in, I think it kind of hamstrings them for their ability to negotiate when they propose legislation.
Okay. Representative Knapp.
Mr. Chairman, I would agree with Representative Tarver on this amendment. It's the second best amendment we've heard all day.
Representative Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't think this language necessarily hamstrings our federal delegation. This is a resolution. They're not required to follow this by any means. They can completely ignore this if they wanted to. So they have no, this is not legally binding for them. So no matter what language we put in here, it's not going to change a thing. They're going to do what's right no matter what, I think. So I'll be against this.
Okay. Representative Riggins first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll just follow up with that. This is going to require the cooperation of a bunch of other states, and this gives them something to know how we're thinking, which might be different from what they're thinking. And so I guess I would leave it. Thank you.
Okay. Representative Lawley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To follow up on Representative Larson's comments, the reason I agree, and what we're doing here is showing that we understand what primacy is and that's what we're asking for. Because to say we're asking for primacy and to say there's a lot of negotiation that can happen in primacy is a misunderstanding of the concept of primacy. So again, other than Romanet 2, I feel like the others just look, we know what we're asking for and we're serious about it. And it does not really bind our congressional delegation. In fact, to say it does is a misunderstanding, in my view, the true understanding of how federal primacy works and what's kind of required in order to get it. So that's why I'll be a no again on this particular amendment.
Okay. Hearing question being called. All those in favor of Vice Chair Tarver's motion to eliminate Romanet 1, 2, 3, and 4 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
Okay, so it's up to me and I vote no. All right, any other amendments? Representative Riggins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would move to strike Roman numeral true, Roman numeral
Romanette. Roman.
one on page 5.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Representative Tarver. Discussion. Question being called. Thank you. All those in favor of Representative Riggins' proposed amendment to strike Romanette number 2 on page 5. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That amendment passes. Any other amendments? Representatives, I have one amendment. It was brought to me by LSO. It's a technical correction on page 5, line 4. It's striking royalty and inserting leasing. It should be Federal Mineral Leasing Act and not the Royalty Act. Do I have a second? Seconded by Representative Larson. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, any other discussion on this bill? Question being called. Mark, we're voting on Senate Joint Resolution number 1 as amended. Please call the roll.
Representative Campbell,
Aye.
Representative Knapp,
Aye.
Representative Larson,
Aye.
Representative Lawley,
Aye.
Representative Riggins,
Aye.
Representative Schmidt,
Excused?
Representative Tarver,
Aye.
Representative Weber,
Excused?
Chairman Heiner.
Aye.
The vote is 7 aye, 0 no, 2 excused.
All right, thank you very much. Co-Chair Wharf, I assume you carry this on the floor? All right, thank you. Committee, thank you very much. We will meet on Wednesday again. Hopefully we'll have some more Senate files assigned to us today and prepare for Wednesday. The meeting is adjourned. You know,